Good afternoon to you, Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com. It's Saturday now, the 13th of August, 2022. Back with the hurricane outlook and discussion for you. We're going to talk about the disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico a little bit. Yes, it's there, and it's something to watch as we see whether or not it can bring some very beneficial rains to our friends along the Rio Grande Valley and vicinity. And then we're going to take a look at the rest of the tropics and what's going on or not going on, and a very important diagram or chart or whatever you want to call it. Try to explain that a little bit as we look ahead to the next couple of weeks and into peak season. We'll try to do that. And then, of course, today is an important anniversary, the 18th anniversary of powerful and impactful on the people of Florida and my project and me personally, my crew. That would be Hurricane Charley. I'll take a quick look back at that. All right, good to have you with me. Get rid of me, and let's get on with it. National Hurricane Center. There's our system, 98L, down in the Gulf of Mexico. You can look at it one way and say that the probabilities have doubled since this morning, from 10 to 20, but that's skewing the numbers, as they say. It's still pretty low probabilities, 20%, but it has become a little bit better organized. There's definitely an area of low pressure down there, and we'll look at that in more detail in just a moment. In the Eastern Pacific, 90E out here trying to make a name for itself, quite literally, but it's running out of time. The waters out here and the overall environment just not as favorable as we have seen in the last few weeks. It's at a pretty high latitude as well, but it still might eke out a quick, tropical depression status or maybe a named storm. But overall, the Eastern Pacific, if we expand this out to the next 5 days, for the first time in a while, nothing else going on out here for the foreseeable future, and that might mean that we're finally starting to see the potential for a trend for the Atlantic to become a little bit busier. Satellite imagery this afternoon, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. There's 90E in the Eastern Pacific, getting some easterly shear on it. And other than that, though, look, the rest of the tropics out here in the East Pac, pretty quiet, just a few random clusters of showers and thunderstorms, but that is about it. There's our disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico. That's 98L, and it's trying to get its act together just a little bit. And then some energy is going to try to come together here off the mid-Atlantic, southeast coast region and pinwheel its way up towards New England, more than likely non-tropical, but a pretty good little coastal storm possible over the next few days. We'll take a look at that more tomorrow. I want to see some more guidance on it and to see how realistic that might be. Water temperatures up this way. The Gulf Stream is not too far offshore where you have 80 degree Fahrenheit or higher, so you never know. Something just to keep an eye on as energy with this big trough that's come into the east and brought much lower dew points to the area, sort of a fall-like feeling. I don't like it because I'm a summer person. I like beach weather and hot, humid conditions and, whatever. Everybody has their own thing. I'm a summer guy. I like good winter storms and things like that, a good blizzard. But anyhow, we'll see how that evolves over the next day or so. I'll take a look at that more in detail tomorrow. But first, here's our system down in the Gulf of Mexico. Again, this is 98L. Remember, they go through these numbers, 90 through 99. That's just a designation instead of just saying this blob of clouds. It's a classification system to assign floater imagery like this. The satellite is able to zoom in on one particular area, so to speak. It doesn't really zoom in optically. It's more of a digital thing. But it can focus on the area. And you can task recon for a system like this, which tentatively that is scheduled for maybe later tomorrow if need be. And then, different computer models get assigned to it, and it isolates it off. It's an area of investigation, so we shorten it to invest. 90 through 99, we're up to 98, and you just start over again. And then the L is for Atlantic. Technically, we call it AL 98, but we just shorten it, I guess, because we're lazy or something. And we just call it 98L. So there it is, not too threatening looking, but I'm telling you, as you guys know, you certainly need the rain all through this region that it will impact. And it looks like it'll move quick enough that it won't be a big flood threat. So that's good news there. The vorticity signature, there is some energy there. It's a little bit elongated. You want to see it a little bit more bundled like that. That's 90E in the Eastern Pacific. So this one's, got some energy there. It's trying to focus just a little bit right here, So the low pressure is there. We got some of the ingredients in place. It's just not quite coming together rapidly, which is a good thing. You don't want a big rain, or I'm sorry, a big wind and surge event. You don't want a big rain event. You want some rain, just not too much of it. Water temperature is not an inhibiting factor at all. 30 Celsius, well, let's use the color that pops out there, Mark. 30 Celsius all throughout this region, plus or minus a degree Celsius or so. So there's no shortage of energy for it to tap into, and that will give us a lot of high precipitable water, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Let's let this load up. I've got, I think, 50 images in there. Sorry for the flashing. It's got to load a lot of images. This is a great product here from Dr. Mark Nissenbaum. I've showed it many times over, he's Florida State University. I met him last year down along the Florida Panhandle, finally. Story for another day. Anyway, there's the system, broad turning with it, no one defined area where you can see a lot of banding features or whatever. Still has time. These systems, as they approach the Texas coast and they kind of wind their way in there, they tend to try to tighten up, and you might see a more defined circulation develop sometime tomorrow. For now, though, just a few areas of some showers and thunderstorms rotating across this big, broad area of low pressure onto the Texas coastline. The whole mess is going to eventually come inland somewhere down here. Don't know exactly where. There's not really a well-defined center, so that's not really something we need to worry about. It's just the broader area of inclement weather. There will be some onshore flow, and as you know, where the wind does come onto the coastline perpendicular, anytime you get onshore flow in Texas, you can raise the water levels. It's pretty shallow out there. So there might be some minor coastal flooding. And we'll look at this more tomorrow, too, as well. I think it comes inland and really brings some much-needed rain to this area, including parts of the Rio Grande Valley, sometime later tomorrow. All right, so this is interesting. I wanted to point this out. The upper-level winds, they're not ideal. Our system is located, let's see what color. Let's use sort of this violet color. Our low-pressure area is generally located in here. That's where that vorticity signature is. And as you can see, the upper-level winds streaming out of it, kind of fanning away, generally. Diffluent flow, kind of looks like a spider when you're all said and done, right? And that's what you want to see, the air going away, not across it. So as an example, if we had a low sitting over here, maybe even a tropical storm or a depression or whatever, it's a terrible L, isn't it? These upper-level winds are cutting right across it, and that would shear it. You know, if the system was moving this way, it would be sheared, and that would be the end of it. Our system over here, 98L, or our almost spider there, missing one leg, aren't I? It's got fairly decent upper-level support. Not the best, but that's why it's trying very slowly. You know, it doesn't have ideal conditions to work with. So again, the emphasis here, I don't think it's going to wind up real fast and be one of these Umberto situations. You remember that from 2007? Certainly you do if you live along, especially the northeast Texas coast up there, close to the Louisiana border, or Harvey in 2017. This is a different setup overall. But again, the rain, hopefully plentiful, without being too much of a good thing. And we'll watch that too. I do think it'll move inland and quickly enough to maybe spread the wealth across a good area over here, down along the Rio Grande and points nearby, without being too slow and creating too much of a problem. So I was mentioning the precipitable water. First of all, look at all this brown up here. I'll delineate it with this purple color for you. That is that lower dew point, or in this situation, the lower precipitable water values over most of the continent now because of that sort of early season cool shot. Again, not a fan, but whatever. And then here's our system down here. Look, you can clearly see it looks like a little trough right there, all these different wind barbs curving around, and you draw a line through there like that. If you want to, just a sharp trough, a little surface trough, trying to close off. It's trying to. That's the process that goes on, and we'll just have to see if it does so. And we can look at that at a different area of the atmosphere, that vorticity signature. But this is the precipitable water. Put this into motion. You see all that green kind of slide its way in 24 hours out. This is tomorrow morning. A little bit more concentrated in South Texas, South Central Texas coastline, and the northeast Mexico. So some squally weather got just a little bit of a hint of some curvature to it, that little tropical storm look, just a little bit. You can kind of make it out. It's like a Rorschach test, I guess. But the point is it will bring some heavier rain from time to time. So if you're traveling down, say, from Corpus to South Padre, and what is that, 77 down there or something like that, just be mindful of that. Heavy rain can cause ponding of the roadways, and you don't want to hydroplane and have a very bad day. And then it spreads inland all across the Rio Grande, and you know what? You never know with these systems that come across the Gulf like that. Some of that moisture could get shoved all the way over towards New Mexico eventually and maybe get pulled into the monsoonal flow. It has been very, very active out in the desert Southwest this year. We'll talk about that more on Monday, and that's a very positive thing. Even though there have been some negative impacts to us mere humans, it's been nice to see all that moisture, so maybe this will contribute to that a little bit. All right, this, the elephant in the room, or the Hog Molar Diagram on my desktop. That's another way to put it. What is this? The easiest way to describe this, if you can understand what you're looking at, it is the 200 millibar upward motion forecast. 200 millibars, way up there, roughly where the commercial jets fly, high up in the atmosphere, because you need that big umbrella of calm winds aloft, kind of everything blowing in the same direction, not wind that's cutting across these tropical systems as they come off of Africa or wherever they may be developing. You have to have this big old area of upper level high pressure, what we call a ULAC, upper level anticyclone, 200 millibars in the atmosphere, that protective area, and this kind of helps us to visualize where the upward motion is currently. That's at the top of the chart. I'll show you in just a moment in more detail. I'll kind of break it down. And then it goes forward into time down the chart. So let's get rid of me so I don't distract you. And so let's see, let's use black. All right. So here we are. This is current right now at the top. This is where we are currently and through the next few days. Okay, this is where we are now. And then the greens indicate general upward motion all through here. And then the red is sort of a sinking motion in the atmosphere. Simplistic way to put it. Where does this occur? That is down here at the bottom. In recent years, the people that produce these over at Weather Models, Levi, I think he has these, I can't remember, different folks have started to put in this Mercator projection map of the tropics because this is for the tropical regions. So then you just extrapolate this and say, okay, rising motion over the next few days over in this region. You could just extrapolate it. Sinking motion starts to show up down roughly through this area of the Central Pacific. And then you can go, oh, okay, that's why it looks like the Pacific is going to start to calm down a little bit. And furthermore, let's get rid of all this marking that I've done. As you go forward into time, there's the 17th, 19th, 21st. It really starts to get less favorable through time here. And you can see how this sort of propagates as well. Once you know how to read this, it's really a fascinating tool. That, by the next 2 weeks now, at the end of August, this goes out to about the 27th, 29th of August, thereabouts, look what happens. Most of the Eastern Pacific is really unfavorable with a lot of sinking motion there with expanded rising motion setting up in this area of the Atlantic. So one more way to look at it, negative conditions in the Pacific, favorable or positive conditions, presumably, in the Atlantic at 200 millibars if this is right. This is from the ECMWF. This is the control run. That's a whole other thing to explain. Just looking at it at face value, and then you go over and look over here. Remember, yes, the world is round, but it's hard to show. I don't have graphics to where I can have an interactive 3D globe to show you. I bet Ben Knoll could come up with something like that. That would be really cool, actually, to wrap this around. Maybe Will Woodgate can come up with that as my team chuckles about it. So it's a flat map on here, on projected on what's supposed to be a round globe. So you have to look at it from left and right. It's just the way Mercator projections work. So a lot of rising motion staying and then amplifying through here. You can see this gradient across the Indian Ocean and parts of Africa, and that will presumably energize these tropical waves, make them more robust, more moisture filled as they move across out of the Indian Ocean, generating generally over Africa, over the Ethiopian highlands. They come off of there, and that should set us up towards the end of August, going into September. So that's where it generally stops here on this particular chart, that at the end of August into September, we should have a favorable setup for Atlantic development. Now, I know there's a lot of talk, even more, every day now, about what could be happening with the Atlantic right now, why we're not seeing much going on. And I think we can just approach it from a very simplistic point of view. Instead of trying to develop a headache over it, there's two solutions to the problem, so to speak, or answers to the question. Are we going to have a busy hurricane season? It's either yes or no. And I know that's very binary, and it's like, okay, well, that's obvious. But what I mean is, either climatology and everything's going to line up, and we're going to go ahead and start everything up as we saw in 1998, 1999. 2004 was a later start. We already would have had Alex and Charley by now, yes. And then some of your other seasons, I think 2011, 2010, that was a huge year with an ace of like 225 or something. I can't remember exactly. Very big year. What was it, like 10 hurricanes or something like that, 10 or more? None of them hit the U.S., so, anyway, getting off the topic here. But we're either going to do that, have a late start, and it just goes track race crazy, or something is off that no one out there, even the smartest of the PhDs, well above my level of education and intuitiveness, could see. And all of the guidance failed, and it's just this massive collapse of what we thought we knew collectively going all the way back to April and May, when all of the guidance was saying, and I mean it was lined up, the NMME, the Euro, the UK Met, everything was saying, the JMA, all the ingredients should have been there, kind of like having everything put together to make the best wedding cake mankind has ever seen, but nobody shows up to bake it. That's a bummer in that situation, right? Now, we don't know. We don't know. We're going to have to literally sit and wait and see how things play out, all right? But just wanted to show this. Anomalies seem to be in the wheelhouse of where they need to be. Fairly warm Atlantic main development region. This anomaly up here of cold is perplexing. It's in the subtropics. How much of a role is that playing? People are talking about it. Some of the discussions are, I can understand them, some I don't. The rest of the subtropics up here in the far North Atlantic, ridiculously warmer than average. That might be playing a role in how the circulation patterns are. We'll see. The rest of the Western Basin is generally a little bit warmer to neutral, right where it should be. And then the big one is we still have this glaring La Nina. No doubt about that. So there's a lot of things that would point to a very active August, September, and into October, late August, that is. We only got about 2 weeks left, right? But make no mistake, I just will throw this out there. It is absolutely possible that we could have 8 or 9 storms, a few hurricanes in September, and 8 or 9 of them also in October, if everything sets up over the western part of the Atlantic Basin. And I've said this before, you don't get development out here, and this is generally shut down. This is the area that you really have to worry about anyway, because that is where everybody that I know and love lives. All right? I don't know anybody that lives in the Cape Verde Islands. I don't. I know a few people that live down in the Caribbean, sure, but even they would be pretty safe in a pattern like this. It's the areas west of about 70 west that could really be in trouble if we have a lot of activity. Maybe we end up with only 10 more named storms, but if 5 of them develop into hurricanes and all 5 hit the U.S. or parts of the Greater Antilles or Central America or what have you, then it could still be a very memorable season that we're like, oh, wow, we didn't have the hyperactive season that we thought, but man, that was brutal. We just don't know. Nobody knows that outcome. And at the end of the day, it's about the impacts. So we have a long way to go before resolving that question. All right, a trip back in time real quick. I know a lot of people have talked about it, and it's important. Charley, this day, 18 years ago, Kind of hard to believe, isn't it? And it made landfall down here in the Port Charlotte area. I was there with Jesse and Eddie and John. We were all out there in our vehicles. And this is what led to the eventual development of the remote camera project, because I realized you can't sit in a Chevy Tahoe. You think I would have known ahead of time, right? At least we weren't near the water. That was our one thing. We knew we weren't going to go down to Sanibel or Captiva and be right next to the Gulf in a Category 4 hurricane. You know, we're not that dumb. But we did want the data. We got extraordinary wind data right there in the Chevy Tahoe. We captured it on a digital data collector, so it wasn't just spot readings. We turned it all over to the National Hurricane Center. Literally was on the phone with Max Mayfield in the eye of Hurricane Charley. And I'm not trying to drop names. I mean, we were connected with those folks, Hurricane Research Division, Stan Goldenberg down there. We were chatting. It was, you know, you got to go to the weather to get the weather samples. And that's what we did. And we recorded it, yes, and made a little mini documentary out of it. It's over on YouTube right here. If you haven't seen it, I'll give you about a 10-second glimpse into what that was like.
Roof just came off of a building. Holy cow! Jesse got it. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Oh shoot! 112.
Yep, so it's on our YouTube channel. The quality is terrible. I uploaded this like a long time ago, 2006, and it was standard definition, 4:3, so it's a little grainy. Sorry about that. I don't know where the master tape is. I could try to redo it one day. Anyway, it's on YouTube. Charley, Bonnie, it's all like one little segment off the Tracking the Hurricanes 2004 documentary that I put together. Quite a legacy. Again, that led to the eventual development of the hurricane, the evolution of the Hurricane Landfall Project, as we called it, to develop remote cams to take the place of us. And many years later, Hurricane Michael came full circle. We captured a Category 5 at point-blank range using technology, and we got to see it from a perspective that nobody has ever seen it before, these nasty hurricanes. So, you know, some of these systems and these experiences lead to something even greater many, many years later. All right? All right. So I try to get rid of my, there we go. Still learning this new computer. Subscribe, yes, please, to the YouTube channel. I appreciate that. Like it, share it, make the algorithms do their thing. If you would, I would appreciate that. And it helps our channel grow and more people get exposed, for better or for worse, to what we do here at HurricaneTrack. And with that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. I will be back tomorrow afternoon. I'll do the morning update. Again, I appreciate all the feedback about the What's Up in the Tropics. Nice short encapsulated version of this. And then I'll be back tomorrow afternoon, and we'll go over this in more detail as we track 98L and kind of wait and see what happens with the rest of the tropics as we get closer and closer to peak season. All right? All right. Again, I am Mark Studdoth. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.